Oh, yeah. You know what?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so the minutes reflect all board members are present. Start off with routine matters, approval of the minutes from the August 18th executive session, the board meeting of August 21st, and the special meeting from September 12th.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Payroll and claims.
Okay, for our August claims, we had claims totaling $2,204,946.51. September claims were $335,169.40. Total claims, $2,540,115.91.
Motion to approve the payroll claims as submitted.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Instructional claims.
Okay, we have four different series of claims tonight. For Series 2020, we had two claims totaling $129,861.50. 2021 series, we had one claim totaling $184,718. For the 2022 series, we had three claims totaling $28,662.70. And for 2023, we had two claims totaling $68,780.99. Recommendation to approve.
Motion approved. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Gifts and donations.
We have 8 gifts and donations to the high school since August 9th, totaling $5,189.18. And to also, oh no, one came from the Youth Center side. Recommendation to accept those gifts and donations.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Other?
I have no other.
Okay, we will open up for public expression on agenda items only at this time. Hearing none, we'll move on to new business personnel report.
Okay, we had 7 resignations and we have one FMLA for a period up to 12 weeks. Don't believe it'll be complete 12 weeks, but that's what FMLA allows, so we're going to list it as such. We have a number of recommendations listed there. Many of those do not have dollar figures yet because it's subject to bargaining. We are ECA positions that we will be doing and adding the salaries once those bargaining has occurred. We also have a stipend that's divided between two coaches. And also a part of the personnel report tonight, I am recommending promotion for Mrs. Barnes from assistant superintendent to associate superintendent, and the board has seen that contract. Recommendation to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Personnel report is approved.
Okay, we're going to move into the 2025 budget hearing. Mrs. McLaughlin, as long as you allow, we will ask Mr. Cochran to give a synopsis of each of the funds, and then ask that you would entertain any questions or comments from the public after each fund. Is that okay with you to do it that way? Okay. We'll do that. So, Mr. Cochran, if you would like to start with the education fund, please.
Yeah, so the education fund includes our appropriations for instructional programs, salaries and benefits for teachers, teachers' aides, nurses, school counselors, library staff, also principals, their office staffs, and the program costs for alternative ed, vocational ed, and special education. The 2025 education fund budget is advertised in the amount of $10,743,082. The 2025 education fund budget does include increases for staff adjustments and raises, and a projected increase for health insurance next fall when we get those numbers. State tuition support funding from the state budget workshop is estimated to be $10,674,173. And that's based on an ADM count of 1,380 students. We'll get our final ADM count on October 2nd. So again, we get a couple kids here, we lose a couple of kids there. This time of year, it's kind of very fluid. So I don't know what our exact number is going to be. We do estimate to get summer school revenue, as we have most years, of about $40,000. We should be getting that number hopefully here soon, sometime in October. And then we'll know exactly where that's going to be. And then we do get also local miscellaneous revenues, that's like interest on our investments or bank accounts, donations that come in here and there. And we do estimate to get about $500,000 in miscellaneous revenue this year in 2025. We also get, new last year, is the state gives us a dollar amount per kid for curriculum materials, because we can no longer charge for curriculum materials for classroom expenditures for our families. So we estimate getting about $150,000 for that. That money has to be spent on curriculum materials, and it cannot be used for marketing. So that gives us a total of $11,364,173 in revenue. We are allowed to transfer up to 15% of that amount from the education fund to the operations fund to cover expenses that used to be included in the general fund. So that would leave us roughly $9,659,547 for our education fund budget. That does give us a deficit of $1,083,535, but we do have surplus, and we estimate our costs to be high for 25 and our revenues to be low. So we will have enough money to fund that budget as presented. So, any questions?
Does anyone in the public have any questions regarding the education fund? Okay, hearing none.
All right, the next fund we'll talk about is the referendum fund. Again, we are very fortunate in our community to have a public that supports our schools so much that they passed a referendum fund. We are in the 4th year of 7 years of our current referendum. This funds additional staffing and program needs, all of our athletics, and more recently, our JSE preschool all comes out of the referendum fund. We are advertised in the amount of $2,641,172. This is statutorily limited by the state on how much we can increase our revenue for the referendum fund, but that is where we will be at for this year, 25. Any questions on the referendum fund?
You have a question on the referendum fund, if you would please just rise, state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Tim Lava, 196 Pheasant Hills Court, Belleville. Referendum fund used to fund athletics, new facilities going in. If we use that to generate revenue, that is through our youth organizations and whatnot, and we make a donation to the board, how does that impact that fund? You said something about a law on from the state, or can that money be used, revenue be used to generate, or used to fund, any project that we would donate to?
Could you clarify, please?
Yeah, so I'm thinking if that, when that field is out there, our Little League facilities have traditionally, we've used the school's facilities. If we run some tournaments that are allowed to bring in revenue off of that to, let's say, help fund athletics, are we limited by the amount that we could donate for that purpose based on the state's limit, or?
If it's a donation,
Yes.
no, since
Okay.
you're renting the facilities from us as a
Yep.
private entity, and then you're making a donation to the school, that is not limited by the state.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from the public on the referendum? Okay,
The next fund we're going to discuss is the debt service fund. Debt service levy is raised for interest on our temporary loans, our 2009 and 2010 qualified school construction bonds, our Series 2020 UCE building project bonds, the Series 21 Wheeler High School transportation building project bonds, the Series 2022 UCE building project, and the Series 2023 outdoor athletics project. The 2025 debt service fund will be advertised in the amount of $4,252,500. Any questions pertaining to the debt service fund?
anyone have any questions from the public on the debt service fund?
Our next fund is the school pension debt fund. We are getting close to the end of our school pension debt. We got another year, 2025 will be, or I'm sorry, 2026 will be our last year with that. This comes from our retirement severance bond debt that was issued for our 2006 pension bond. The amount is advertised for $92,937. This fund is a tax rate, is offset or neutrality driven from our operations fund, meaning that whatever we would get for our operations fund, they take this amount off of that, and that's how that rate is set. So, any questions on the pension debt fund?
Any questions from the public on the pension fund?
Okay. Our last fund that we advertise is the operations fund. It's comprised of costs of the district not directly related to the classroom. It also contains former capital projects fund, the former transportation fund, and the former bus replacement fund. Therefore, this was multiple funds that they combined into one in 2019. The capital projects portion does include categories for land acquisition and development, professional services, building improvements, emergency allocations, our sports facilities, service agreements, utilities, building insurance, technology, personnel, and special ed, vocational ed, and alternative ed room rental. Our transportation portion also supports salaries and benefits for bus drivers and monitoring personnel. The transportation portion also pays for bus insurance, bus repairs, tires, fuel, and supplies. The bus replacement plan is for the purchase of school buses, special needs school buses, and special purpose vehicles or SPVs. In 2025, we are including the purchase of 2 new buses or SPVs as we see the need for our routes. And our total budget estimate for operations is advertised in the amount of $5,980,455. When we have all our funds, the rate that was advertised, I know at our last hearing, we had discussed it being about $1.22, ended up coming in right at $1.02. And now the LGF will look that over, and they will issue our rate. And our 1782 notice, which we hopefully get around Thanksgiving time. Any questions on the operations fund?
Mr. Packard, on the bus replacement, you mentioned that we have allocated a placeholder for 2 new buses or SPVs. How does that work? Because I would think buses are vastly different in price from an SPV.
They are, so we could either get 2 new buses or a new bus and 2 SPVs, but the funds comes from the same spot in the line.
So we've allocated for the highest of that, I would assume.
Allocated
Two
for 2 buses, yes.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Any questions from the public on the operations fund? Okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing on the budget process for this year.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. The hearing is now closed.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. Okay, for project updates, we have some exciting things that are going on around here. And to share those with us tonight, we have Dana from Barton Covilla, and we have Dane from Hagerman.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. I will catch you up on a lot of the little things that have been going on and then turn it over to Mr. Hernai to catch you up on the big things that are happening. So, Union Center parking lot. Basically, we are to substantial completion. Final change order has been issued. That's in the process of being circulated to close out contingencies and costs. Disturbed yards have all been graded, seeded, mulched, and most of it over there is coming through actually pretty well. As you look at these pictures, they are a week old now. I took those when I was here last week. There's only one small spot that the grass hasn't quite caught at Union Center. The rest of it all seems to be coming along pretty well. The folks are, it's been pretty dry. They're doing a lot to keep water on it, so, and it helps. Found out today, one of the new lights that was put up, the one that's been laying behind the shed all for the last 2 years, isn't working quite right. So we're gonna do a little bit of remedial work and get that fixed. Other than that, I think Union Center is pretty much ready to close out. Hopefully we'll have that for you next month. I also stopped out at John Simonovich today. The work out there is also substantially complete, pardon me. And again, all the closeout paperwork starting to move through. Just a couple things that are left, both electrical. If you recall, as you walked into that building, there was an old speaker hung below the soffit right by the front door. Contractor took it down, took it back to their shop to clean it all up while they were working, and they lost it. So they pushed through submittal on a new speaker, and when it shows up, the electrician will be out to hang it. And also there is an outlet on the wall that you don't really notice. It's on the grassy side, up on the hill behind the retaining wall. And it's, over the years, it's shifted just a little bit. The electricians have put it back together, and he's out here. Other than that, I believe everything out there is complete. The grass is doing great. I can never get Joe's last name right, so I'm not going to attempt to say it, but he's done a phenomenal job of keeping the water on that yard. The grass is really taking, it looks nice, so.
And Kristen, you now have planners out there, don't you?
We do, yeah, so, just last week, then, Mr. Joe, we were looking through, Randy gave us the Menards thing to get planters, and we have mums in there for fall, so it's really cute.
How are the lights?
Very bright at night too, it's nice, it's nice when I'm leaving late at night too, you can see there. Sometimes I've come in the morning or at night and only a few are on and some aren't on, so I wasn't sure why that was the case.
Okay, if anybody asks, there is a good explanation.
Okay, good.
All of the lights are on a timer, so they come on at a certain time and go off at a certain time, but each individual light also has a photo sensor. So if the sun is out, they will individually turn off if the sun's out. So that's why you see one or two at a time.
Thank you.
That's Simonovich. I didn't ask Mr. Hunter, but it appears we are still at the same place waiting on NIPSCO to disconnect power from the shed out by the ball fields.
Yes, and I do have an update on that. I finally reached someone yesterday because I stopped calling back the person that told me to call her back, because she would never answer my phone message, so I called someone else. And, long story short, she called me back. They will be out sometime next week. She will be emailing me yet this week to let me know what day, and they will be terminating that at home.
Perfect. Now that Mr. Vaughn's getting busy, he's got more to do. The tennis courts, I can tell you, if you've not been out there, the post-tension pads, the area under the courts, I think it was all poured last time I was over here a month ago. All the tests have come through, the concrete all has tested far and above what it was required to do. As they began to put the posts in and the curbing around the outside, our civil engineer caught that the installers had misread a couple of dimensions. So if you see them doing a little bit of remedial work on the curbs out there, that's why they're going back and tearing some out and putting them in correctly. That set them back about a week in doing that. So if you go out there today, the alley, the concrete walk, that's the alley between 3 courts on one side and 3 courts on the other, it has been poured. They now are going back and redoing the curb. And then the coatings, as I understand it, are scheduled to start sometime next week. So at that point, it looks like we're probably looking at about this time next month for them to be complete and out of here. So.
I noticed when Randy and I were out there, I think it was yesterday, they're also doing some resurfacing in areas where there are blemishes and imperfections, so they're fixing some of those.
I suspect, I didn't ask because I noticed that today too. I suspect that is the coatings folks doing a little bit of patching in an area they might have thought would be a little bit low and potentially permanent. That's typical of the coating folks doing it just before they show up. So, other than that, the posts are all in for the fences, and I think the only concrete work that'll be left then will be the bleacher pads and the ramp and sidewalk. So everything will be handicap accessible when it's all complete. So.
Dana, that new sidewalk that we poured, where we took the fencing down by the overflow parking lot, there's a big area where it's been damaged. Is that from their vehicles or trucks, or do we know what happened with that?
I don't know if Dana's aware of it though. We believe the fencing company that came to take out the old fence damaged that when they drove across it. But Gary is aware of that, and they're going to make that repair when they come back. Because they haven't poured the pads yet for the bleachers. So when they come back to pour those, they'll fix that.
With that, that brings us to the high school project. To the best of our knowledge, we have gotten through all the Porter County reviews. I will confess it's been a little trying as Porter County goes through some changes at the county office, from some personnel changes and different approach. From my end, the turnaround has been much quicker. The folks are all very helpful. I think as they all get comfortable with their new positions, though, we seem to be having issues with miscommunication that sometimes rankles folks, and we have to calm some upset people. Actually, folks at Hagerman have been doing most of that, and Mr. Hunter have. So, having said all that, we have a plan commission hearing next Wednesday. They, as we understand it, is our final box to check. But as I said, we've crossed all the approvals, we've done everything that's been requested, and we understand that to basically be, unless something new pops up that we are unaware of, is our final blessing. So with that, I'll step back and let Dane take over and talk about the progress they've made.
Okay, so last week we were grading and filling the baseball fields and softball fields. The soccer field has to be brought up a little bit from the new grading changes, but then we'll be ready to seed that. This week, right now, we are working on the footers and for the dugouts and backstop. We're well on our way doing that. Next week, we will start on the masonry walls. So you'll start seeing things start being built above ground after Wednesday. And we'll also start working on the concrete nailers where you nail the turf to it or connect to it. So you'll start seeing the shape of the fields. I'd say also start the baseball foundations as well. For the next school board meeting, our goal would be for the masonry to be close to be completed on the dugouts and the backstop for the softball field. And turf nailers for both fields should be well on their way at that point, and putting on fence posts.
Still on schedule?
We are working Saturdays, and when we can, do 10-hour days to make up. So we're pushing. We are on schedule right now for our concrete, but we'd like to make up as many days as possible with pending weather coming up. Any questions?
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of other updates that I want to give you on other projects. First of all, Field House 4, I am pleased to say, is complete. So the track has been lined, the base coat has been added, and we have had many bodies in there, as you can imagine, from the time it was finished. So it looks really good. So middle school gym floor, we do have that RFP for quotes out, and those will be received on October the 8th. We also have had vendors. I know we had Lee Company in today to start giving us some quotes on new bleachers for the middle school gym. So we made the decision that since we are going to replace the floor rather than repair the floor, well, at least we're hoping that we're going to replace the floor. So we're getting 3 quotes when those come in on October 8th. 2 of the quotes are to do some level of repairing of the existing floor. The 3rd quote will be to replace the entire floor. So in anticipation that we're going to replace the entire floor, which is where I lean, because some of the people who have come out and looked at it said that part of the issue is actually the subfloor that's causing the main floor to break up. Okay, so that's why I kind of lean that way, but the price has to be right as well, part of it. So, but if we're going to do that, to do the entire floor, we have to take out the bleachers. So if we're taking out the bleachers to put in a new floor, it only makes sense that this is a good time for us to replace the bleachers. So we've had vendors come in to start giving us some quotes on that as well.
Do you have any idea what the timing, let's just say we did a full replacement?
We would not do it until next summer.
Okay, so I was wondering the impact on their
No. The key for us to get those quotes for new bleachers and the new floor now, mostly for bleachers, is the lead time to get them. And then the floor and the bleachers for install is so that we get on someone's schedule early, so that we're the first ones next summer for the job to be completed. That's kind of why we're doing it as early as we are. So that's, I guess, an update on those 2. That's all I have for project updates, I believe. Questions? Okay. The agenda's wrong, because now it's the associate superintendent's report. Mrs. Barnes.
Okay, we are, let's see, sure. I'm excited for the next 3 board meetings. We have some great news to share, and that is our data for elementary, middle school, and high school on our standardized assessments. So we're going to spend some time and work with our elementary principals, and we're going to present our I-Learn data for last year. So that's why it's 23, 24, and then next month we'll be with Mr. Ellis, and the following month Mr. Zach. So without further ado, go to the next one. Okay, so as a reminder, we take IB3 in 3rd grade, 2nd grade takes it now, And that helps us kind of predict where our kids are at and look at what more we need to provide as supports. Because from that second grade report, we get an on track, passing, or they're at risk. And if they pass, then they don't have to take it for IB 3. So this then, or in third grade, I'm sorry. So this number right here shows you how we compare in the county for our IREAD 3 scores. So that includes all our kids that passed in second grade and then our kids that passed in third grade. And we also, our kids who take it in the spring and don't pass, we'll give them another chance in the summertime or right before school's out to take it again. So you can see that we are 94.3 and we are top 2 there right underneath 94 Porter Township School Corporation and Valparaiso Schools, but right in line with 94.3, 94.6, 94.4. So it's, not even a kiddo there. So with that, our curriculum is wonders. We focus on go back one more, back thing, that's okay. Small group instruction, our science of reading is our focus for our intervention students. All of our special education teachers have been trained in science of reading and Orton-Gillingham, which is what we use to intervene our students that don't pass IREAD 3 or are at risk in IREAD 2. And then our summer school is going to change. The state, with part of the literacy initiative, one of the areas that they're changing is summer school. So the focus for summer school for this coming year, the funds are going to really be directed towards reading K-3. And so we're going to see some changes. The state hasn't come out with all of that guidance, but as soon as they do, that will definitely affect the courses that we're able to offer next summer, because this is the new legislation for the summer. The other piece that I want to talk about, and it's been in place, but for IREAD 3, the state is now giving good cause exemption for very specific situations. Before, if you had an IEP, you could qualify for a good cause exemption and move to the next grade. The state, again, with the new legislation focused on literacy, is really saying they have to fit into these 5 categories in order to move on to the next grade, or they will be retained in third grade. So the retention piece has gotten a lot more strict. And we recently sent a letter out to our K through 3 families, letting them know, our K through 2 families, letting them know that this is part of the new legislation. The letter was required for us to send it to our kindergarten students' families, but we decided that it would be best, because it addresses all of our K through 2 kids, to send it to all families. So we sent a letter out just recently to those families so that they could know what to expect in kindergarten, first and second grade. The other piece that goes into this is our dyslexia screening and testing that we're still doing K through 2. That also allows us to have more information to support our students in eventually passing the Okay. Overall district performance, when we look, this is separating our ELA scores from our math scores. I have another slide coming down that shows you ELA and math together. You can also see there's some highlights here of where we scored in relation to the other Porter County schools. We are in the first and second place here in the county, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. Tonight, I put 6th grade, 7th, and 8th on there, but we're not talking about that tonight. We're gonna wait for the next board meeting, but I wanted you to see that our corporation in ELA and in math scored first in the county. So that was a huge accomplishment, something that our teachers are celebrated for, and we're really, really proud of. In grade 3, 4, and 5, both in math and ELA, we were first in many spots and maybe just a little bit underneath the first place person in second place in the county. Okay, this is for state comparison. I think this is always important for us to see, okay, when we're looking at our county schools, how do we fare? But now let's look at the state. So you have our ELA, where we fall in, we are above Munster, and then we are a little below here at 67.6 to Brownsburg, Carmel Clay, but right in there. And then for math, same thing. We have Zionsville and Lafayette ahead of us, but we are still top 10, top 8 in the state. And when you're thinking of 389 schools in the state of Indiana, that includes all of those. And that's our corporation, how we score. And down below, there was an article in, I believe, the Chicago Tribune that also posted, and it talked about our comparison of state schools. That was referencing the ELA and math proficiency. So that's all of the students that have both ELA and math. And you can see that we are right there, again, in the top 10, top 8 of all schools in the state. So a lot to celebrate for last year. Obviously, we want to be at 100%. We want to grow this. We want our kids to be able to continue to show growth. And so we're going to continue to work and put in different places so that we can provide more support for our students who aren't passing and reaching the levels that we want them to reach. Right. Go to the next one. Okay, so this is where Mrs. Hankins and Mrs. Phelps, Klein, Jenna, we got two Jennas at the end. Mrs. Klein and I, we all got together and talked about what are our interventions going to look like. We have spreadsheets upon spreadsheets of our student data, kind of narrowing things down to really pinpoint how we can provide extra support in specific areas for our students.
So I'm gonna echo her sentiments and just saying that our students and staff deserve all the praise for their performance. This is incredibly impressive. And as you, absolutely, definitely paid off. And as you said, there's always room for improvement, no matter what you do. So we're gonna be doing this with 3 different areas. The first is with curriculum. As you stated, our adopted reading series is Wonders by McGraw-Hill. In addition to that, all of our teachers have been trained in 6+1 writing traits, being able to teach our kids the process of writing. The second is with our interventions. So this includes small group instruction. This occurs both in the classroom and also in our resource rooms, where students can get more individualized attention where they need. Also with individual learning pathways, there are a variety of programs that we do that with IXL, with Reading Eggs. And again, just provides those students with some extra practice that is specifically at their level. Differentiated instruction. So all students need different things, and that could be either to accelerate learning, also to help fill those gaps. That's also being done within the classrooms. And the science of reading focus, where all of our teachers will be trained in science of reading, keys to literacy between now and summer of 2026. And finally, as she said, also with our summer school focus, that being more on the ELA, really making that focus on those essential standards, those standards in essential need of support, and with comprehension, focusing on the reading comprehension piece and written expression.
Yeah, so then for math, we have very similar, right? We're going to talk about our curriculum, our interventions, and our summer school plan. So for our curriculum, we are using our Indiana Reveal Math, which is by McGraw-Hill. So all of our teachers have that. For some interventions, small group instruction. And this happens in our classrooms where our teachers are doing this. It also happens with a resource pull and push in support. And that's also part of that differentiated instruction. During those small groups, they can choose and pick what skills and things they need to work on to enrich, to remediate, or to continue to support. And then our individual learning pathways for math, we have IXL, which is an online program that helps provide standards and skills that students need specifically, so they can address what gaps we have for our kids. We also have I Know in Math, and we have Extra Math, so our teachers are using all these programs in ways that help support their instruction. And they're doing a fabulous job, which we're going to continue to work on that. Our summer school focus here, again, is that essential standards. We have those checkpoints, we have our curriculum maps that help us with what are the most important standards we need to work to build on, so we're going to continue that. And our computation, just that with itness of being able to compute and solve those problems, because when it comes to problem solving, we need to apply that computation skill. That's where we need to work on.
Okay, so our instructional focus, this has been the collaborative piece that I've worked with Jenna and Kristen and really worked at what do we want to focus on this school year. So last year, we really worked on bringing our schools together and our teachers together. So we do that on our PD days, and then we do that at least once a month, and then our grade level teams are working together. So we have our school improvement teams, we have the technology learning pathways, we work together with our high ability and our specialist teachers to really highlight the strengths of our students in all different areas. And then our curriculum maps, as you know, we completed those last year, so we're going to continue to update those and revise those based on our students' needs. And then our professional development piece, I wanted them to talk about with how they're directing their staff with what the need is.
So it's kind of like here by our school focus areas that we've worked on. So with our professional development, we're working on our goals for about helping to support our instruction for our students, and then also for, we're talking about Marzano's best teaching practices, which go into here. Our school focus areas that we're noticing are about that stamina and intensity of that 4th and 5th grade. So when you see those scores, you might think, how did they go from 3rd grade to 4th grade and keeps getting, the test is really hard. So if we could allow you guys to be a 4th or 5th grade kid and take this test, you would also be sweating because it's a long time, a lot to read and juggle when you're talking about the reading test, taking complex tests, and then answering questions about them, and then writing about them. Same thing for math. It's a lot of multiple step problems that you have to continue to focus on. So imagine the stamina that a 8, 9, and 10-year-olds need to have that. So that's one of the things that throughout the year, our teachers build upon is that stamina and intensity of their work. Our writing curriculum, we have been doing this for the last 2 years, and I think we are now, with the exception of some of our new teachers that are here, everybody is trained through our semesters on our writing workshop. Everybody has that piece. So they are working on that, and that has proven to have a difference in this year's ELA scores. And so imagining as we keep that going, that was just year 1. So our professional development, I'm continuing to talk about writing, comparing how they've been working, and again, building that stamina for intensity. That problem solving and that multi-step process, that's a lot of that application of how you're doing math. So we want to work our teachers to have that support for what are different ways there. Mrs. Asher's really good about helping provide a lot of math support for and differentiated thinking. We do a lot of math talks so that way kids get in that habit of explaining. So that's one of the things you have to do on iLearn is to talk about how you solve the problem as well. So that's very important. So our PD, if you want, is kind of what we've talked about, our problem solving, writing, and our science of reading. So Mrs. Klein had talked about our science of reading skills that we have. Some of our teachers already did the first part. 4 Keys to Literacy came out, and they did the science of reading training. And then now our state is having a Keys to Literacy. Many of our teachers have already done. They spent hours for the summer to get their reading, their science of reading, and that is from kindergarten through 5th grade if you have a license in that. So, and some are still working on it, there's still a process to go. So that's a big piece. I'm very proud to say that at Union Township, we are a very science of reading based school district. So many of this is not new to them, because as we talked about Orton Gillingham and the way that we do our reading, they are getting that. It's just kind of nice to have that refresher. And then our constant instructional support. So we had talked about that we have our small groups. We do believe that our students are our kids. And so at both buildings, we're working on our special education team supports our teachers support them. We have our aides and our resources, and we are all working wherever they need to be. High ability, if they need to be retaught, or if they need that extra support of more intense interventions. And we work and collaborate together really well, so it's constant. I can speak for just a really quick bit about how kids coming in from other schools, moving in, have said, I've never had a teacher within the first week notice that my kid needed support and go in and do that so quickly. So our parents are noticing, and they are very thankful when we have these conversations. So anything else you want to add? Okay, but I'm very, very proud of our teachers, but we're going to keep elevating that bar.
And I want to thank them too, because leadership of the school and seeing the big picture and bringing the staff together for the common focus of doing what's best for kids, they do a phenomenal job, so. All right, this is our final slide. I wanted to remind everybody about the island checkpoints. To what Mrs. Hagan said, that test is very rigorous. It is, the kids are exhausted. We try to separate it out. There's a lot of technology that's involved in it. They're taking it on their Chromebooks, and it is a challenging test. So one of the things we're hoping for is through this island checkpoint, which their model is assessments throughout the year, that our students have more chances to practice and see, not only show us what they already know through the standards, but also have a chance to practice what that summative island test looks like. So as a reminder, we are taking the pilot this year, 4th through 8th grade. So our 4th through 8th graders are no longer taking NWEA, and instead they'll be doing the pilot, which is very similar. There's benchmarks. So the first one is November, then there's one in the winter, and then in the spring, and then they'll take the final summative test. That final summative test, unfortunately, the DOE did not allow us to take the final summative test that aligns up with the checkpoints. Doesn't really make too much sense, but it's kind of what we get dealt with, and we work through it. So our kids will be taking the iLearn test that is exactly what they took last year. Next year, 25-26, all students, 3 through 8, will take the checkpoints, and then the summative test is based on those checkpoints, is based on the new academic frameworks and new standards.
And it should be a shorter test too.
Yeah, so some highlights of the new test. The iLearn checkpoints, when we think of iLearn, we think of taking it over 3 and 5 days. Well, the checkpoints are only 20 to 25 questions, ELA and math. So they are able to take the assessment right in with their teacher who teaches that class. The teacher is supposed to, the DOE has told us, that they will get that data back by the next day, which is very different than typical iLearn. So we'll get it the next day. Teachers will then be able to see, okay, my class didn't do well in this group of standards or domain. They'll be able to reteach, and they will have the opportunity to retest the students or small group of students if they feel needed. We want to be very cautious about over-testing, obviously, so we want to make sure that when we're talking about retesting, there's a reason for it. If we teach it and we know the student has learned that concept, there probably isn't a reason that we give them the checkpoint again. But that is an option for us, and we do have that availability. And the checkpoint, the 20, 25 questions are different from the first time we took it. So that does help. Let's see here. Our curriculum maps. This is another thing I'm really proud of and thankful. Last year was a lot of heavy load work to do to create curriculum maps last year. But now when the state is rolling out the iLearn checkpoints, we are ahead of the game because we have checkpoints that curriculum maps that are aligned to our checkpoints. So our teachers know what to teach before each checkpoint. So that is kudos to everybody for getting those done last year. I think I kind of touched upon everything. We will continue to do NWEA K through 2. And next year, we have also been told by the state, although they haven't told us who the vendor is going to be, but that the iLearn checkpoints will be linked to a technology software like IXL or like Study Island, like they use at the middle school, that allows the checkpoint to feed into that program to then design an individual learning pathway. So that is what we've been told, they just haven't told us which one they're going to use.
Or ones, right? So were there like a couple that they were?
There's a couple that they're looking at, yep. I did send a letter out to our students in grades 3 through 8 explaining this information, and There was a link, the DOE has created a family guidance letter for each grade level. So in that letter, there was a link to, so if a parent wanted to say, okay, my child's in 4th grade, I want to know what the DOE says more about the checkpoints and what's in English and math. And they have that letter, so that was in the letter that was sent out. Yes, and the Indiana Learning Lab, which I'm updating our website as we speak, of assessments, the DOE just recently came out with a family support hub. And so I'm putting that information out there. Actually, I did put a link in the letter. Yep. So I put a link in the letter, that's in the letter too, but I'm putting it on our website. And it gives parents resources, not only to help their students, but to understand the assessments. The Indiana Learning Hub is huge for teachers, and they've been using it, but now they've come out with a second component to support our families. So we want to continue to get that out there.
And that's linked in both of our weekly newsletters, if you ever want to, or if any families ever want to. So there's your virtual plug, if you haven't read your newsletter yet.
Questions you may have?
More a comment than a question. So over the last couple of years, we've talked quite a bit about lost learning. And in looking at our scores, is it fair to say we've overcome that now and we've regained those losses?
I would say, I mean, absolutely. Our scores show you that we're top of the county and top of the state. We're doing very well. We do have still a group of students. Some students have our IEP students who struggle in that area to learn, and we have to come up with different ways, and we do a lot of small group instruction. We also have students who are on our at-risk watch list that we are still catching up. To Mrs. Hankins' point, oftentimes when students come from other school districts, we do spend quite a bit of time of making sure we're doing small groups to catch them back up. But the amount of growth that they make is astronomical at our schools.
And it is due to like the support of having that too. So I know that we just recently switched from not having the learning loss specialists, but we do have our classroom aides, and those are still vitally needed as part of that small group instruction. They're a core piece to doing small groups as well as with the teacher, or when the teacher is working with the small groups, they can differentiate and build those gaps. Then the support staff can help monitor the rest and make sure that everybody's being there, and they don't have to interrupt that 15 minutes of intense targeted instruction. So the supportive people is really beneficial, and that's why we're able to do all of those small groups we talked about.
And not only that, just the support of our families. I've been absolutely overwhelmed by the number of families that have come saying, what can we do to help? How can we help? People who want to volunteer. It has been really just wonderful. So our students really do have the very best support system here, not only with our incredible staff, but also with their families.
Thank you.
Great, well, and certainly appreciate not only the partnerships of our families and our staff, but the incredible work our staff is doing in our schools. And it's paying off. That's great. Okay, our next item is our extracurricular account reports. This is for the 23-24 school year. These reports basically show the county or the board, as well as the community, the accounting of our receipts and our expenditures by every fund that goes through our extracurricular accounts at the school level. And I'm going to ask the board to approve these. They are published on Gateway through the state as well. Recommendation to approve is presented.
To approve as presented.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Carries.
We have a school bus that we would like the board to declare no longer in service and obsolete. This is bus number 6. I believe it is it's nearly 12 years old, but it requires an entire new exhaust system. And the cost to replace that entire exhaust system exceeds the price, the cost of the bus, the worth, the value of the bus. So I'm asking the board to declare it no longer of service, and in our next round of purchase, we will trade it off.
Motion to declare the bus no longer of service.
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Carries.
Our next item is institutional memberships. This is an annual approval that we ask the board to approve for administrators and their memberships for their professional organizations. Recommendation to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Carries.
We are entering our period of time where we will be doing some collective bargaining with our teachers association. And you heard that last, I think it was a couple weeks ago, we held a special meeting to do a joint meeting to start that process. And we have a date scheduled for next week. I'd like to recommend the board appoint Mrs. Millar, Mrs. Barnes, and myself as members of your team to represent you in the process.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Motion approved.
Thank you. We do have next Thursday, I believe, this is what we've got scheduled. We're going to kick the night off with pizza and salad, and break the bread together before we start into our negotiations. So looking forward to that. Out-of-state trips or overnight trips, we have two in the packet tonight. They're both for natural helpers. One is for the fall, going to Camp Lawrence again, and the second one is for the spring, I believe in November and March. Recommendation to approve.
So moved. Second.
Any questions?
I'd just like to reiterate what a great program that is. They do a great job with it.
Thank you. Yes, they do.
All those in favor? Aye. Approved.
Okay, the last new business I have is the PL 221 plans. These have been worked on collaboratively within each building. They have also gone to discussion, and we talked about those. This year, we as a school corporation need to have the board formally approve these, but we do not have to upload our plans because of the high performance of our district. We get a reprieve this year. Over this school year, each of the schools will be redoing their entire 3-year plan, and we will submit it in 2025, 2026 year. So recommendation for the board to approve the plans as presented. There has been a change in some of the plans from last year to this year in order to move toward having them look more alike. I think you're going to see that even more next year because the principals have already talked about collaborating together to make them look a lot more similar to each other.
Is there a motion to approve the PL plans as submitted?
Motion to approve the plans as submitted. Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Plans approved.
That's all the new business I have.
The other business,
No other new business.
communication,
Okay, recognition of exemplary performance. Our fall sports are well underway. I know we have senior night. We had some senior nights already, but we have a senior night, I believe it's tomorrow night for girls soccer. So out on the Bearcat Field, if you would like to see that. And I believe they will do that before the game is what they normally have planned, but I don't have that for sure. Our high school volleyball team received an academic award, a team academic award for last year from the IHSACA. And so congratulations to our volleyball team. They had to have at least a 3.5 grade point average as an average. So well done from our volleyball team. Also in your board packet is a partnership agreement from Purdue Northwest. Basically, it's with the Education and Counseling Department, allows us to join in this partnership, which will allow us to have student teachers from PNW in our building. It also allows us to have
teachers who are not yet student teachers, but are doing practicum classes in our buildings as well. So we want to continue that partnership as well.
Do we have any plan for this school?
We do, do we have anybody from PW yet?
Valparaiso.
I think it's Valparaiso.
Yeah, we do have student teachers in our buildings, but not necessarily.
I don't know if it's from PW per se. And we just had communication last week from a former Bearcat who is getting ready to do student teaching. I think it's next year, isn't it? It's not in spring.
Correct.
And so we're excited to potential to have another Bearcat come back and do some student teaching in our district. Hopefully, we have a spot for them to hire. Mrs. Barnes and Mrs. Klein and Mrs. Hankins talked about our iRead scores. In celebration of how well our kids did, I will be in Indianapolis at the State House next Wednesday morning to receive an award on behalf of our staff and our students for their outstanding achievement. So I'll be doing that Wednesday morning after the fall conference. So I'm already down there, so I might as well stay and get the award, and then I'll come home. I believe that's all the communication I have.
We will open for public expression. And state your name.
Yep, for the second time tonight, Tim Lava, address 196 Pleasant Hills Court, Valparaiso, Indiana. I'd like to comment on the personnel agenda item. It's been since May, since our wrestling coach has resigned. I know we've had a few candidates, I know for whatever reason, thankfully, maybe or not thankfully to you guys, I have a pretty good ear to the athletic community in Northwest Indiana and the South suburbs of Illinois. I've learned earlier today that the wrestling coach that probably could have been on the agenda tonight to be approved, that may have fell through. My son asked me to come tonight, he's a wrestler, to speak to you guys. He's getting nervous. There's about 10 kids out there that would like to have been to the meeting tonight. They decided not to show because they wanted to honor their commitment to the Powder Puff game. It's important. I heard a lot of words tonight, big picture, what's best for kids, what can we do to help? That's one thing I heard over and over again at the last few board meetings. What concerns we have as a community we should bring forward. This is a big deal for kids. We had 4 kids advance to the regional tournament last year. We had one match away from the state tournament, and the kid he lost to has graduated. You go to the state tournament in Indiana, you're gonna probably get offered an opportunity to go somewhere. So it's a big deal for that individual, that senior. I'm concerned, we're 5 weeks out. I know we have candidates. I know some of them are parents. I understand that it's preferable not to have parents as coaches. But we have to figure something out. We're letting kids down. There's 40 kids in that program that we're letting down if we don't have a coach. The IGSA rules don't allow for anything. I've looked them up. I've talked to people at the state. Like I said, I'm pretty involved. I've got a lot of contacts. It's important. I encourage all of you to please take it serious. It is urgent. Treat it with some urgency, please. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Yes?
Hi, my name is John Christos. I live at 250 Court, Valpo. I'm here to bring to the board's attention, my daughter plays soccer for Wheeler, girls soccer, and we do have senior night tomorrow at halftime. They have a great opportunity tomorrow to, against Leanna Christian, to bring home their conference title if they win. I know there's a lot of great things going on here at Wheeler, a lot of new fields, a lot of amenities. I know it's been hard finding practice space. But like the last 3-4 weeks, a lot of teams have been practicing in the girls' field, and it's pretty much destroyed. If you look at the west end of the soccer field, it's pitted, there's holes. It's in pretty bad shape. My biggest concern is if they get through tomorrow, Wheeler is also hosting sectional titles here, and the field needs to be probably reseeded and repaired. I mean, I don't know where else we could practice. They can practice on soccer fields, but just to bring it to your attention, the field's in pretty bad shape just the last 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your concerns.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Superintendent comments.
Okay, first of all, I will respond to the wrestling comment. We are certainly concerned about that as well. We've been trying to get someone, but we gotta get the right person as well.
I understand.
So we are actively searching again, and we do have a candidate, and we do hope that we will be able to name someone very shortly. But we gotta get the right person. We can't have anyone in front of our kids that's not going to be good for our kids, and that's number one as far as I'm concerned. So,
Agreed.
And number two, we'll check into the field. Thank you. for that.
Thank you very much.
October 16th is our next board meeting.
Any other items? Do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Okay, motion to adjourn, or meeting adjourned.